pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for coming tonight. Pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Laws of 1975, this meeting has been duly advertised in the Asbury Park Press, issue November 21st, 2014. All municipal clerks of the townships and boroughs within the regional high school district has been duly notified, and requirements of posting the notices have been met. Okay, approval of the minutes. Do we need it? This is old. This is from June 23rd. We need a motion for the minutes.
Motion.
Thank you, Jen. Second? Second. We have a tie. We'll pick. Okay, and discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Boyce?
Mr. Espatola?
Yes.
Mrs. Fankhauser?
Yes.
Mrs. Lavin?
Yes.
Mr. Messinger?
Yes.
Mrs. Sotera?
Yes.
Mr. Corolla?
Yes.
Mr. Moses?
Yes. Okay, communications are on file in the board secretary's office. Next, we have the superintendent's report.
All right, a few items this evening. We had our administrative retreat that was conducted on June 29th and June 30th. The theme for this school year, for the 15-16 school year, was what is possible. And it was really, day one was designed to be a little bit provocative, to push the administrative team to think outside the box and think a little bit beyond the norm of expectations and standards. And so we went through the fact that, you know, we've doubled our AP and honors numbers over the past 4 years, from, you know, the AP exam from 2,000 to 4,000 classes, but that at the end of the day, all that has been low-hanging fruit. Now the real work begins to identify those students who haven't been tapped into. And we opened the day with a favorite of mine, which is a video, and I don't know if anyone has ever seen this, but with David Blaine. David Blaine is a famous magician, and he goes about trying to become the world record holder in holding his breath. And it's all about his journey on how he tries to do that. And he ultimately decides, first he tries to use magic to do it, and then he comes to the conclusion that, why don't I just really try and do this? And he does. And it's his journey in doing that, and it's a perfect example of problem-based learning, and how you throw out a problem and somebody attacks that problem and over time learns all of these lessons along the way. But along the course to trying to set this record, the world record is shattered twice by somewhere around 20%, because he inspires other folks to start really pushing the record. And it's really just, so the theme of the day was really about going beyond what you think is possible. And in the second day of the retreat, we focused on goal setting, very specific goal setting for the building administrators. And the purpose of that day was so that the principals and assistant principals were clear on their long-term goals for 2015-16, and so that when we come into Supervisors Week in mid-August, beginning on August 17th or August 19th, that we're working collaboratively to make sure that those goals are tightly aligned from the central administration all the way down to the building. So that was the focus of the administrative retreat on the 29th and the 30th. Our summer programs are off to a terrific start. So we have our credit recovery, our original credit, our AP Summer Bridge, and our extended school year program all housed at Colts Neck High School presently. There are hundreds of students there. It's always very busy. Our Title I students are housed at Freehold Township High School this year, and that's a change. We had traditionally housed everything at Colts Neck High School. Colts Neck is the building with the air conditioning, but we really felt that separating those groups of students would allow us to be more focused in the buildings, and there was a lot of student traffic, and so we've seen a real difference this year in just how calm and quiet everything is at both buildings as a result of that change. But we're doing a lot of great work over the summer, and the highlight of the summer is always the extended school year talent show that happens, I think, August 5th this year. So those are some of our students from across the district, and I think the theme is a Motown theme this year. Construction for ESIP is underway. Freehold Borough, Freehold High School. I sent the board some pictures of what it looks like in every classroom, the main office. So, there's work going on 5 of our 6 high school roofs. So there's cranes all over the district. There's just an extreme amount of work that's being done over the course of the summer. Mr. Boyce and Mr. LaGraveness are managing that very well. I know the two of them met with the roofers today. Mr. LaGraveness and I toured basically every room of Freehold High School on Friday. So everything's off to a great start, but the devil's in the details with that, and we're pushing up on some very tight timelines about finishing that work over the course of the summer. So that is underway. It was actually one of those sort of aha moments when you actually watch the work, because those of you who've been here know that ESIP has been years in the making, and to actually see the work coming to fruition this summer is terrific for us. Formal report on our graduation status. So each year in July I report out the total numbers for the class of 2015, total number of graduates. The Freehold Regional High School District graduated 2,794 students. 354 at Colts Neck, 366 at Freehold, 517 at Township, 605 at Howell High School, 474 at Manalapan High School, and 478 at Marlboro High School. We had 0 students that were denied a diploma. Of our 2,794 students, 94% of those students are going on to further 2- or 4-year colleges. 21 of those students are attending Ivy League schools. 36 students are joining the military and serving our country. And our students, this is self-reported, but received over $77 million in total scholarship and grant monies for the class of 2015. And that concludes my report.
That's a good way to conclude. Okay, next up we have board reports. First up is Curriculum and Instruction Committee.
I'll speak on behalf of Curriculum Report today. So today we had a very productive meeting. We talked about a lot of things, first of which is we discussed a few of the new revised curriculums for AP United States History, and also something that we're dubbing Modern Math, which is for grades 11 and 12. Now, I've looked through briefly the AP United States History curriculum, and I'm very pleased with what I see. The change that really happens is, instead of just teaching the content now, which is important, we're also teaching the means of learning history and considering history, and really the types of sources you want to go after, determining which ones are good, which ones are not so good. And learning how to think about history is really the more important skill, especially once you enter college and you find out that your professors argue with each other all day long. So you really want to develop your own opinion out of that. With modern math, I actually have a roommate who studies math at Yale, and one of the things that we discussed a lot was how math in high school really needs to change a little bit. And what I've seen in the curriculum that we have so far really is a distillation of many of those changes that he would like to see himself. He's one of the smartest men I know, so I really trust him on that issue. And a few of the things that we did talk about with this curriculum was that, one, we focus on computer science, which is great for students who might not even want to go into computer science, just because we let them, given the jobs of the next decade or so, it's always something helpful to have on the resume. And it's something that your competition is going to have, even if you're not specifically doing a job that is directly computer science. But the other thing that I'm even more excited about is that we're having a heavy focus on statistics. Statistics is a skill that really can diffuse throughout the rest of the subjects that you are going to take, including and especially the sciences, but what many people might not think of at first are really the humanities, political science, things like that. It really helps you discern, once again, what is good information and what is bad information. And I like what we see here. One of the things we talked about of perhaps including in the future is a bit more of an emphasis or another option on statistics as seen, utilized through the use of computer programs. It's great to know everything by hand, but more than ever now you can just log onto a computer and run statistics that way, and it might be a more effective use of time in the future. So those are the two curriculum, the new curriculums that we saw for new courses. We also talked a little bit about the Magnum programs, about applications, retention rates, as in more so how many students we're able to hold on to that we allow in. And with that, we're talking about ways to, really much compete with some of the vocational districts, and we've been doing a good job with that. Some of the areas that we've been talking about competing more in the future is really branding our IB program, because as some of you may not know, the vocational schools get talked about their IB program a lot, but really it's only biotech that has it. So that's actually a point that we could probably, we don't want to compete with them, but we kind of do. We can lure away some of those students from there. And then finally, the last thing we talked about were some of the technology facilitators that we're going to have helping out with all these new curriculums, really integrating technology more into the classrooms with bring your own device policies, and I really think that's great. And perhaps, one thing in the future, from what I've heard about the 1980s, because I wasn't there myself, was that...
I have a pair of parachute pants for you, Vincent.
Was that, there used to be these AV clubs around that, would help set up the projectors and everything.
Yeah.
So I feel like that, these kids love to help out with tech sometimes. Maybe these technology facilitators, they can kind of serve as coaches to some of these kids who in turn help some of the teachers out, maybe after school or something like that. And it's really, a learning experience for them that's hands-on, tangible, something that they could put on the resume. And, it's a win-win for everyone. So, yeah, that's the curriculum report.
Well, Vincent, I want to say personally, irregardless of the statement about the 1980s,
Yeah.
I'm really happy to have a college student on the Board of Education.
Thank you. And I'm very happy for your wisdom, too.
Wow. Okay, next up we have Finance Committee.
Okay, we had a meeting on July 6th, and basically the architect came in and gave us an update on various projects, some of which were mentioned by Mr. Sampson. As everyone recalls, we split up the roofs. The two roof projects from last year are essentially complete in Freehold Borough and Marlborough. And with respect to 2015 roof projects, the bid prices were good, and the work is underway at the four other schools outside of Freehold Borough and Marlborough. And just so everyone knows, there is going to be a roof monitor at these projects, so we could keep an eye on what's going on there. With respect to the track replacement is complete at Freehold Township, and with respect to Manalapan, we should have a finer timeline on completion of that by the end of the month. And as a reminder, the next two tracks to be replaced are going to be Freehold Borough and Marlborough. And if you look at Section I of the minutes tonight, you can see that we are awarding funds for that. With respect to the lighting, Mr. Sampson had talked about that. 50% of the installations of that should be done by the end of this month. With respect to HVAC, boiler demolition is completed at all four schools where it's going to be done, and by the end of this month, or I don't even know if it happened yet, it might have happened since the meeting, I guess boiler deliveries are anticipated at Howell, Freehold Borough, and Manalapan. We also heard a detailed discussion of the architects meeting with contractors over awarding HVAC controls for all the classrooms. With respect to building and grounds, there were 5 things I think everyone should know about. Currently fixing a plumbing problem here in this building. They're doing some paving at the transportation depot. They're going to be doing some paving at Manalapan with respect to sidewalks and curbing. New air conditioning going into the Howell Library. And then there's work was done on the water and sewer systems at Cold Snack. And then we just wrapped up the meeting with respect to some environmental issues with respect to oil tanks that had been in the ground going back many, many years. And the engineer's actually going to sit with DEP and look to close out an issue at Freehold Borough, because I think the issue at Freehold Borough may go back all the way to 1942. And the issue at the transportation depot goes back to 1992 with respect to paperwork issues. And that was our meeting.
Thank you, Michael. And last but not least, we have policy committee.
I'll give the policy report. Policy committee met on Friday, July 17th. It was a brief meeting. There were 3 policies that we have on for a first read for this evening. Those are adjustments to 2624, our grading system, 2361, our acceptable use policy, and 5516, our electronic devices policy. And with respect to the grading system, the only pertinent change is really we are up and running with our International Baccalaureate program next year, and how those courses are going to be graded. So we needed to make policy change to the weights of that course. So that's the only real change to the grading system. For our acceptable use policy and our electronic communications and recording devices, some of those changes are really reflective of our BYOD, as Mr. Asatola alluded to earlier. And we had some policies that were a bit dated. Electronic pagers, another remnant of the 80s. And anyone who had a pager on them, folks did indeed know what those pagers were for. There was some very restrictive language around the use of cell phones, and with BYOD, we've certainly opened access to the use of those phones and those devices with teacher permission, of course, and it's the gradual shift that's beginning here of recognizing that these devices are more of a classroom management issue, similar to passing notes and the such, and so it's a little bit of a paradigm shift in the district. I think when I started here, I'm in my 5th year now. I think the policy was literally, cell phones are to be locked away in lockers, and if you see a cell phone, a student is to be disciplined immediately. Obviously, with the BYOD and opening up the network and making sure that we're utilizing the devices that students are coming fully equipped with to schools and can make use of, and teachers are also maximizing, there's got to be some slight policy shift, maintaining the fact that it's got to be with teacher approval. So those are some of the brief language changes around those policies, and it's the first read. There's some language that we're going back and forth on a few of these, and I think we're awaiting some electronic feedback from some committee members, so there may be some brief adjustments for the second read, which will be on the August 31st goal board meeting, and that concludes the policy report.
Okay, thank you.
Participation. Just 2 notes on the agenda. I do have an addendum, item G16, which reads, be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the board approves the termination of employment and rescission of renewal of employment for the 2015-16 school year of employee number 10925. Also, on item J22, a correction, second name down, should read Jennifer Burgess and not Tammy, so that correction on the agenda. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Boyce. Public participation. Seeing none.
I would just like to recognize members of the Montclair State graduate cohort who are here tonight watching a board meeting in action.
Really? Oh, boy. And you picked our board to be their model, huh?
It's not an assignment for any class I instruct, actually. They're here for some other professor.
Welcome. Okay, next we have the agenda, which goes from G1 to K3. Included in that is Mr. Boyce's G16 addendum. I'd like to take the agenda in one shot. I know we have to have a motion for that. So do we have a motion? So we'll. Thank you, Sam. Do we have a second?
Second.
No tie there. All those in favor?
No, that needs to be a roll call.
Oh, that needs to be a roll call.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Ms. Boyce, I didn't mean to take your,
Our personnel. Is
Your
there
power.
any discussion?
any discussion? Mr. Boyce?
Just so, what is the motion?
To move
To
G1?
approve the agenda?
Yes.
Or
To move the agenda.
Move the agenda in one.
Agenda G1 to-
Okay, the entire agenda, thank you. Mr. Asatola?
Yes.
Mrs. Fankhauser?
Yes.
Mrs. Lavin?
Yes.
Mr. Messinger?
Yes.
Mrs. Sutera?
Yes.
Mr. Carollo?
Yes.
Mr. Moses?
Yes. Okay, now,
Motion's carried.
motion's carried. Do we have discussion on the agenda? Any discussion on the agenda?
We just approved it.
We just approved it, so there is no discussion. Therefore,
Old business?
any old business? New business, can I have everyone on the board look at that camera, please, just for a second? Hold up your right hand, please. Please, everyone on the board, hold up your right hand. Mr. Sampson, could you hold up your right hand, please? Mr. Ray, you're not swearing to anything. You're waving.
Oh.
Just want to say hi to Bill, who's somewhere in America. Bill, the board, waves hi. Have a safe trip. Okay. All right. Any other new business?
Yeah.
Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting, please?
Motion.
Thank you, Jen. Do we have a second? Kathy, thank you very much. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? No? So shall ye say, so shall it be written. Thank you for coming.